Story 1. Absolutely not, because at some point you will be left alone on a planet with literally nothing, similar to that Twilight Zone episode. Story 2. As long as it is not Reddit immortality where you end up floating in a void after the heat death of the universe. If it is regular life for a few extra thousand years, then that is okay. I would need there to be an end eventually. Story 3. Depends on the kind of immortality. Literally cannot die. Hell no. That's a curse of the worst kind. Not going to die of old age. Retain youth. Can still die by suicide or major accident. Sign me up. Story 4. Yes. Things are bad now. They have been bad in the past and they got better. I want to see how things improve. If I am immortal, I can study and learn new technologies and leave this world. I would have the universe to explore. All the time to write my own stories between systems. I could spend centuries losing myself and rediscovering. I could be anyone and do anything. Story 5. No, because I would want to make a lot of change, and if anyone found out, they would try to stop me. I would rather just let it flow how it is supposed to. Story 6. Depends on what you mean by immortal. If you mean I never have to die until I decide to, absolutely yes. If you mean I can never die even if I dive into the sun or a black hole, then no. Eventually, that would be horrible. Story 7. Nope. Bad enough to see your pet die. Imagine seeing all the people you love grow old and die as well while you stay young. Story 8. Yes, it would be nice to complete all the side quests, clear my bucket list, and do other enjoyable activities, but I currently cannot with my difficult and uninteresting life. Story 9. No. I think life would become pretty boring after a while. If the question were more like, would you want to live 200 years and not age? That would have been a yes without hesitation. Immortality? Not in a million years. Story 10. Only if I have eternal youth, vitality, and invulnerability. Otherwise, you will just end up a dried-up husk. Story 11. No. I am poor and have to work all day every day just to afford the apartment I do not get to enjoy because I am working. Do you think I want to do that forever? The only relief is the sweet release of death. Story 12. Absolutely. I would like to explore the universe. The human body is not made for space travel, at least according to our current knowledge of physics. Story 13. Immortal? That is a really long time. If it is not reversible, I think it would become really tiresome after the first trillion years or so. Story 14. I will just leave this here. Story 15. When you have enough wealth, you want to live longer. However, those with minimal resources may prefer a shorter life. This is just my opinion. Yours may differ. Story 16. No. I am 39. At 45, I will sell all my belongings, donate the money to charity, find the biggest wave I can, paddle out, and not come back. Story 17. No. Eventually, the sun will implode and Earth will be shattered to pieces. You would just be sitting there, probably bored. Story 18. Being immortal is a higher level of existence, so I would definitely choose it and help people with problems they cannot solve on their own. Story 19. Define immortal. Am I completely incapable of dying by any means, or do I simply stay in a perpetually young body? Being the last entity left after the heat death of the universe sounds horrifying, but if it is up to me when I leave, that would be a lot better. Story 20. If I am allowed full, excellent health for the duration and can choose when to meet death, why not? Story 21. Yes, and I would live in a very remote area where I would not have any human interactions so I can live peacefully. Story 22. Immortal does not mean ageless. Will I grow old or will I stay the same age? Because if I stay 30 or 31 forever, it will be nice. I can learn everything, gain more money, and so on. Will I take it? I am not sure. Am I sick of this life? Yes. But am I curious? Also yes. Story 23. I think I would be good at immortality. I would need to be able to switch it off once the rest of humanity becomes extinct or maybe a few hundred years after. Story 24. Never. I already hope not to live long. I aspire to die before my 30th birthday. Immortality is an anguish for me. Story 25. Sure. I had difficult parents who made sure I could not live in peace, and I will take this as an opportunity to eventually live a decent life. Story 26. No, I have been bored with life since I was 16 or 17, and since I cannot commit suicide because it is a sin, I have been patiently waiting for the day I die. Story 27. Yes, just to see history unfold and how humanity would advance. Maybe pick up enough skills and knowledge to help direct it and use the wisdom of my experience to help and guide people in need. Story 28. Yes, I would walk through time, seeing and experiencing everything. I will be revered as a god among men, someone here to ensure a new world order, to bring peace, justice, equality, and freedom to all of humanity. I will deliver no matter how long it takes or how much effort is required. Story 29. Depends on the constraints and conditions involved in or surrounding immortality. Some fictional examples would be great. Others would be a nightmare. Story 30. Like in the mythical vampire sense where you can die or sleep for huge periods. Sure. Eternity on Earth? Absolutely not. Eternity is terrifying. How long until you have experienced everything for the 100th time? Your pets, friends, any relationship would feel like they last for days when time begins to mean nothing. You will watch everyone you ever meet wither and die. Every place you love will change and erode. Entropy will be your god and decay becomes the world's only promise it keeps. Story 31. Without question. Can you imagine the number of books I could read? The number of hobbies I could try? I could see every animal on Earth, eat every food, and drink every drink. It would be awesome. Story 32. Not a chance. Why would I want to outlive all my loved ones and even watch my children die? I feel anyone who would want to be immortal does not really think long and hard about how many disadvantages there would be to never being able to die. Also, with the way the world is nowadays and only getting worse, I doubt most people even want to be alive right now anymore. I am sure most are getting sick of how this world continues to crumble more and more. Or maybe that is just me. Story 33. Depends on the other conditions. If I am immortal and always in my early 30s, then yes. If I just will not die but will continue aging, that really sucks. Story 34. No reason to. It would be horrible to just watch everything and everyone die. Nothing would have any meaning anymore. Story 35. Depends on whether we are discussing functional immortality or true immortality. Functional immortality means you cannot die of natural causes such as aging, disease, or illness. However, you can still die through other means like decapitation, a stake through the heart, looking at a portrait painting of yourself, silver bullets, explosions, and so on. I would choose this because it ensures a long lifespan that can end if I face being alone until the heat death of the universe. True immortality means that nothing can kill you whatsoever. I would not choose this, as others have mentioned, because it forces you into an eventual scenario where you end up alone, either floating through space eternally or at least until the heat death of the universe when everything collapses back in on itself and you are compressed into tiny atoms. Story 36. Who wants to live forever? This person. Bring it on. Assuming that it does not include situations like, you got chopped into little bits, but the bits are still alive, or the world blew up and now you are immortally drifting through space. I fully recognize I will see loved ones die before me, but the world is too full to experience in a single lifetime. Their mortality will weigh on me, but it is not my fault. My death does not add more meaning to their lives. Story 37. First reaction, yes. I want to experience it all, see the world, and so on. But then that world will end. Maybe 200 years from now, maybe 1,000. After that, I will have millions of years of solitude, barren earth, and misery before the sun engulfs the planet, hopefully ending the curse. No thanks. I am sure it would be a blast, but the timeline will be overall much more skewed toward a bad time. Story 38. At first, the idea sounds interesting. I am very curious and love to learn. So dedicating time to multiple fields of study would be great. But what if the human race dies off following a nuclear war, pandemic, or natural disaster? Am I stuck as the last human? Could you imagine being alone, unable to die for infinity? That sounds awful. Now, if I had the ability to end my life on command, I would then choose immortality. Story 39. I just recently finished reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I think I will take the chance. Story 40. Absolutely not. Just think how much grief you go through in life dealing with losing family and friends who are close to you. Now imagine an eternity of that. No thanks. I am at peace with the idea that when I die, I will not even know, and that is all done with. Story 41. In this world. No. I do not want to remain here longer than absolutely necessary, which is also why I am not an organ donor. Once I am gone, I do not want anything calling me back here for any reason. Story 42. Depends. Can I end it myself if I have had enough? If yes, sure, I would love to go on longer. I am just too curious about all the things we could discover. And if everything starts to fail, I could leave. If no, absolutely not. Being forced to live forever sounds terrible. I mean, one day our universe will die, and I would be the only thing left, forced to exist inside a void. Story 43. The devil is in the details. Invulnerable or merely immortal? If only immortal, do I have unnatural healing or normal human healing? Do I age? Is it absolute immortality? Or can I opt out later when the sun burns out? Is it transmissible? Can I bring anyone else with me? I need answers before I can commit. Story 44. I do not know about immortality, but I would like the option to live as long as I want, then choose my time when I am ready. For example, after 1,000 years, I have experienced all that I wanted to. It would be nice to say, I am ready now, then lie down and that is it. Story 45. Does this mean that I live a comfortable life and, if I ever get sick or hurt in any way, I am not disfigured? Story 46. Only if I also have the ability to lose my immortality when I am ready to die. Even if you circumvent the psychological effects of seeing the world around you change so drastically, you will almost certainly lose your motivation. We only have so much time alive, so we have to use it effectively. If there will always be another tomorrow, we would never accomplish anything again. Story 47. If my body does not fall apart and I am not invincible but can end it when I choose, yes. Maybe then I could eventually own a house and do all the other things on my bucket list before I die. Story 48. No. I am going to try and live a full life. I will be accepting of what happens next. The big mystery. Story 49. No. It might be fun for some time, but then my kids die. The worst part is, what will you do if the Earth stops existing in billions of years? Just float around forever? Story 50. I have many memories that I wish I could forget. I am only 37. The idea of 40 more years of memories is terrifying. I do not want infinitely more memories. Story 51. That is a complicated question. Immortal and unaging for about 10,000 years, I suppose. But immortal for millions or billions of years? Absolutely not. Story 52. Yes, I want to see what happens in the future. That is the main reason. Also, I do not want to die, so there is that as well. Story 53. Not a chance. I will be lucky if I can endure 10 years with the pain I am in. Maybe if good health and happiness were included, a large amount of money would not hurt either. I would consider it. Story 54. Depends on the stipulations. Do I stay young? Am I vulnerable to being killed by some means? Am I going to eventually just be a conscious speck floating through the void of the universe? If I can have a functional body and I can end it when I am done, absolutely yes. I will be really sad when the people I love die, but I have so much to do and experience. If not, no thanks. Story 55. No way. In the winter, I do crafts and remodeling and can't wait to get my fingers dirty by spring because I'm tired of doing crafts and remodeling. In the spring, I plant seeds and prepare my gardens for growth, eager to see everything growing and lush. In the summer, I enjoy planting but get tired of fighting weeds, so I look forward to fall when I can stop. In the fall, I cut wood and harvest my gardens, longing for winter when I am done with all the work. Doing this on a permanent loop would be exhausting. Story 56. Sure, it might be a curse and I would not enjoy it, but the ability to have a connection to the past, who has seen and experienced so much, would be able to assist future generations with insights on history. Unfortunately, for future generations, all of my stories will be pop cultural. If, in some twist of events, I continue to age, then my brain and mind will deteriorate to the point of being functionally dead, so it does not matter either way. However, with immortal tissues, they could use my non-functioning self for some medical innovations. It would be a terrible life, but I am used to that. Story 57. Yes, absolutely. Sure, I'll have some bad days, but there is a long time before the heat death of the universe. And now, so there should be plenty of fun things to see. Story 58. No, I don't think I'm built to be fine mentally after thousands of years. At some point, everyone is going to be dead, and the sun will collapse. So unless you are into space travel, always being here means you are done. Plus, the worst case is you still age. After about 100 years, you are just going to have a bad time. If you are healthy, then you are subjected to seeing people you love die and watching humanity repeat cycles of war. Basically, with infinite time, I will probably become crazy or decide I am tired of people. Story 59. No. I cannot imagine having to watch each generation of loved ones pass away. Spouse, children, grandchildren, and so on. That would ruin me knowing I have to see it. Story 60. There is a song with words like, "You will pray to all the gods when you see the sky in front of you. You refuse immortality now, but when you die, who knows?" Story 61. Never. I am already at the age when loved ones are dying, including friends my own age whom I have known for decades. That alone is sad enough. To live long enough to see every person I have known or loved die while I am still here sounds like eternal hell and damnation to me. Story 62. No, forget that. Immortality would become a curse, not a blessing. Assuming I still have the mental health problems I do now, I will pass. Story 63. No. Think, Mark. You will outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet. You will live to see this world crumble to dust and blow away. Everyone and everything you know will be gone. What will you have after 500 years? Story 64. Hell yeah. While others die like unimportant flies and get forgotten even faster, I will be living on like a true main character. But it is not natural. Shut up. I do not care. Story 65. Do I get to have powers? If I do not have godlike powers to change this disaster, then I would not want to keep living in the upcoming wasteland. Story 66. No. Life is precious. If it were abundant and infinite, it would be meaningless. Have you ever turned on God mode in a game? You're bored after about 20 minutes, right? No challenge, nothing at stake. Wowbagger, the infinitely prolonged From the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is probably the most accurate depiction of an immortal. He is infinitely rich, has no purpose, and all he wants is to die. He has done everything, which is why he builds a time ship and decides to insult the entire universe one by one. He does not even enjoy doing that. It just passes the time. Story 67. Will I still have the option for suicide? Will I still age? I would generally say yes. It might take time to adapt to this new lifestyle, but it will probably be kind of nice once you have adapted. My concern is that the longer you live, the higher the chance of getting stuck. Imagine you have a car crash and get trapped in your car underwater. Nobody finds you, and you remain there for decades until either the car rusts away or someone randomly discovers you. The worst case is some event that ends humanity occurs, and you are stuck here forever. The planet blows up, and you drift through space forever with no way to stop. No thanks. Story 68. I always wanted to use the game Second Life to make myself into a Buddha who moved from town to town and just begged for his needs, wearing an orange robe. I could never get that game to work for me, but if I lived forever, that is what I would do. Story 69. That is a question I have pondered a lot since my teens. Thanks, and rice. Immortality sounds great in theory, but I would have stipulations. I would need a younger, healthy body that does not have multiple sclerosis, and the ability to give immortality to people I love too, and my cat. I would also want a way out if I ever changed my mind. I could not make everyone immortal, and that would get to me in time. I have grieved a lot in my life already, and it has only been 38 years. Perhaps I would never need that option, but I would like to have it nonetheless. Without those requirements, no, I do not think I would want it. Story 70. God no, to fall in love with and then watch the people you love die over and over again for centuries. Forget that. Story 71. Yes. I want to see how humans develop. I want to see whether we take to the stars, create virtual worlds, solve problems, or decay in on ourselves. What happens to Earth itself, how all the animals and ourselves keep evolving over the next few millennia. There are new people, stories, and adventures you can have every single day. The single most limiting things to me right now are money and time. After 100 years, the money sorts itself out and I won't even have to work. After 1,000, the possibilities are limitless. There are things that are possible that we can't even imagine. 150 years ago, we didn't have the light bulb. The world will be unrecognizable in 500 years. People who think the world is going badly are paying too much attention to the news and not enough to what's happening around them. Quality of life, medicine, communication, education, food, water, and many other things are only getting better year after year. People don't buy good news, so people don't sell good news, but really it's everywhere, and I'm betting it continues to do so. As Hob Gateling says, dying is a mug's game. Story 72. Definitely not. Watching everyone around me die, no matter how many new friends I make over the years. What if the sun explodes in a few billion years and I am there with no way of dying? Also, what about pain? Do I feel it or not? What if I am in constant pain with no way of escaping it? Story 73. Yes, with two conditions. 1. Send me back to around 10,000 before Christ so that I can see as much of history as possible without constantly hiding or fearing people asking for documents. 2. Allow me the ability to end my own life. Story 74. Only if I can end it at any time. I am sure it would have some cool uses, but as it is, I would not be sad to check out early. Story 75. I would absolutely be immortal as long as I could eat, drink, party, breathe, and function normally. However, at some point, I would have to be able to go off-world because the Earth will not be around. Floating endlessly in space is not where I would like to be, so I would have to get to a place that has a fairly stable red dwarf star, at least for a while, because this lasts way longer than our star. Then I would go planet hopping until I could see the universe evolve. Wouldn't it be fun to see the Andromeda Galaxy collide with the Milky Way? Story 76. Immortality is forever. What everyone is proposing instead, when they ask for an out clause, is being allowed to die when they want and on their own terms, as if that is not a scenario everyone would take. If it is true immortality, no way. If it is false immortality where I can check out at any time I want, of course I am taking it. Story 77. Damn straight I would. Secondly, I wouldn't be alone anyway. Give humanity about 50 more years, and there will be plenty of people who have infinite lifespans as well, relaxing. Story 78. Hell no. The idea of living cycle after cycle, watching everyone around me pass away, would be misery. Story 79. I would not accept it because, for example, I do not want to see my children or their children die. That would be too bad for me. Story 80. I am smart enough to admit I am dumb enough to take it. I am very scared of death. I would take this deal knowing full well I will regret it at some point. Story 81. If I can control it to some extent, then sure. However, one day I may simply not want to do it anymore. Story 82. Yes, I believe someone will eventually invent time travel, so I will be enjoying the best marijuana the 1980s has to offer. Story 83. Absolutely. I want to see how everything plays out, and if I end up drifting in space for an eternity, I do not see how that is any worse than eternal void anyway. Story 84. No death and no end mean there is no reason behind anything. Life lacks meaning and urgency. Apathy sets in and you lose the will to live. Eternity stretches out like an unbearable weight of black empty space, and all directions eventually point back onto themselves. Story 85. I felt depressed reading these comments. You could be many things. You could study to be a doctor, make movies, fix cars, pilot airplanes, dive into the Mariana Trench, have wisdom to speak with people, learn about physics, build a quantum reactor, tell stories about your years of life. You could do many things. Would everything eventually end? Sure. But who cares? You will probably be here when everything resets again, and you will get to be a god among everybody. You are the end and the beginning. Story 86. Absolutely not. Being immortal sounds like my personal hell. Not only will I not have to watch everyone I love die, but when the earth eventually ceases to exist, where do I go then? I am immortal, not space-proof. It just sounds like a terrible time. Story 87. No. Even if things get better, they will always get much worse afterward. Human beings just cannot be trusted to be good the majority of the time, and I am already tired of it. I cannot imagine an eternity more. Story 88. Vampire style? Absolutely. The body reverts to its healthiest form, while the mind retains all current knowledge. Impervious to disease and aging, I can set myself on fire or find a guillotine when I have had enough. I could live many centuries very happily that way. True immortality? Cannot die by any means? No way. Story 89. Absolutely not. Being immortal has always been one of my greatest fears. I have battled very severe medication-resistant depression since I was 10 years old, due to a dark and traumatic childhood, coupled with a terribly broken brain. Having to live like this forever would be unbearable. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. Story 90. No. Even ignoring all the interpersonal issues, eventually the sun is going to expand and engulf the earth. What am I going to do at that point? Story 91. I think the idea of not going through death is tempting, as I fear the way it will happen. But the idea of seeing everyone I love pass away and being alone in this world scares me more. I want to die before my sons and before their children. Story 92. Immortal in what sense? Do I not die at all, or do I just not die easily, such as surviving multiple gunshot wounds? If it is the former, then no. At some point, you will be the only human left alive. Then you will be the only life form remaining on Earth. After that, the solar system will cease to exist, and you will drift through the void for all eternity with nothing at all. That is not a desirable fate. Story 93. Depends on some factors. First, will I continue to age or stay at a predetermined age or stage of development? Second, is the option to end my life at a time of my choosing available, or is immortality involuntary? Third, when the universe inevitably goes dark after all the stars die, will my consciousness still be intact? Or will it be a scenario where time is a flat circle and the universe starts all over again? Fourth, will I be susceptible to pain? Or does immortality extend to invulnerability as well? Chances are I would say no, but having a morbid curiosity to experience the distant future and all it has to offer is tempting. Story 94. Do we get to check out when the planet is destroyed by a supernova? Because floating in space for eons would be unpleasant. If we end with the planet, I am probably okay with that. Story 95. I would not like all the sword fights, so I would be out. But wait, what if I could shotgun another immortal's head off? Would that work for the quickening? Because then my answer may change. Story 96. Seems like the monkey's paw scenario. I will pass. If we actually do have souls, I do not want to do anything that could possibly get mine stripped from me. There is also the possibility that immortal means that a person would survive the death of the universe and be left alone with nothing but their own thoughts for eternity. Story 97. Long-lived. Yes. Immortal, no. Eventually, all my time would be taken up by missing people who died millennia ago. Story 98. Yes, on 3 conditions. First, I can stay physically as I am now. Of course, I can make myself healthier naturally and by visiting the doctor. Second, the world does not notice that I am immortal. In their minds, I appear to be aging as well. I do not want to become a government experiment. Finally, when everyone on Earth dies or the world ends, or the heat death of the universe occurs, I will die with it. Story 99. If I could stay young and later in life end my immortality, maybe. If I could never end my immortality and had to live forever, no, absolutely not. And if my body did not heal or did not stop aging again, also no. Story 100 depends on what kind of immortality. An invincible body that does not age or need food, or just an embodiment of your consciousness, or what? It would be torture if you still had feelings or your senses and you were deep in the sea drowning but could not die, for example. If I could select my own kind of immortality, I would prefer to be some kind of consciousness, perhaps like a ghost, without any physical restrictions. I would explore Earth, covering every surface, then every layer until the core. Then slowly but surely every planet, star, space debris, galaxy, and finally the whole universe. Story 101. Being immortal breaks entropy, so you do not need to worry about a starless void. Your mechanical energy is a source of infinite power. Story 102. With conditions, yes. As long as I was healthy and mentally sound, and as long as I had the ability to tap out if I decided I was done. Story 103. Yes. I want to see it all, and there will always be more to see. The hardest part, at some point, would be learning to embrace the joys of the present while accepting the sorrows. Story 104. I would like the following: to heal and stay young, to be able to choose to die, for example, end of life on Earth, and not to have to hide it, for example, not having to keep switching identities or risk being locked in a cage for experimentation. Story 105. No. I do not want to lose friends and loved ones constantly. Even once is heartbreaking enough for me. Also, I have already had enough difficulties for one lifetime. Thank you very much. Story 106. No. Think about the definition of immortal. You never die. Not you live a really long time and then die, as most people assume when they do this thought experiment, but you never die. Ever. Imagine existing until the heat death of the universe. Long after the Earth and everything else has decayed into near nothingness. Long after you have forgotten that there was even anything to remember. Long past the possibility of having any sort of experiences. Just awareness existing in empty space until the end of the universe. Story 107. All of us, maybe just me, no. I would have to bury my wife and kids, my grandkids, and so on. If I am immortal, I would probably have more and more wives and kids, more and more heartbreaks. I would have to bury my cats and dogs over and over again. Life would become lonelier and lonelier. No true love, just some passing flings that last a few decades. So no, I wouldn't. Story 108. No, it would set a bad example, and I do not want to be a Republican politician either. Oh, immortal, that I would like, just for the extra fun. Story 109. Yeah, definitely. Imagine the fun you could have. I bet you 50 pounds I can climb to the top of that church steeple. Story 110. Only if I could heal from the mental and physical defects that I have or learn to use the manic episodes as a superpower. Otherwise, I am good to go now. Story 111. Imagine they hunt you down and trap you in a box underground or at the bottom of the ocean. Immortality would truly be unpleasant. Story 112. No, if it is only me. Imagine living a life where all the people you are comfortable being with have died, and you are the only one left. Loneliness might be quiet, but it is torture for me. Haha. Story 113. Absolutely not. Surely the next few centuries or even millennia might be fun, but there will come a time when physics suggests the last proton will decay in about 1 times 10 to the power of 40 years. Then you will be left alone in the void, literally the only thing in the universe for all eternity. Story 114. I want to see the end of humanity and later see the end of the universe, then float into the endless void for the next billion years. That is so cool. Story 115. Yes, with the caveat that I can end it painlessly when I please. It will be interesting while Earth is around, but after Earth is gone, it becomes a race against time to find somewhere else before all the stars go out and the heat death of the universe occurs. You better hope you have a very fast spacecraft. People do not fathom how big space is and how many billions of years it would take to travel any kind of meaningful distance. By the time you have traveled to another star system, millions of planets will have come and gone, civilizations will have risen and fallen. You would be lucky to find anyone or anything else. Eventually, there will be tiny clusters of life gathered around dying stars. Once all the stars go out and the universe dies, then it is just you, alone with nothing. Nothing will ever be born again. Nothing will ever exist again. Just endless, endless nothing. You will scream into the void. Nothing will ever hear you, forever. Story 116. Meh. I do not know. It would be nice to live a couple of 100 years in good health. Eternity, however, does not seem that great. Still, if you could choose to end your life somehow, then why not? Story 117. I think I would settle for the X-Men Logan for all intents and purposes immortal approach, where I cannot really die for a few hundred years. That would be plenty of time to live, see the world 1,000 times over, and do whatever you want to do. Story 118. Most people would say yes. No one wants to die. Even if you say you do not mind, when time gets closer, you will feel it. This is the reason why midlife crisis happens. Realizing you are at the halfway point and it is going downhill hits your feelings. Story 119. No. I am not going to do anything to hurry my end, but I am waiting to see my husband again. Immortality would mean never seeing him again. Story 120. Biological immortality? Absolutely. No longer aging and able to live as long as injury and disease do not take me out sounds pretty great. Actual immortality and eternally not growing older? Probably not. The time spent going insane from floating alone in space would be exponentially greater than the time experiencing anything I would want to live longer to experience. It is possible that if it were actually being dangled in front of me, I would change my mind. Actual immortality but continuing to age through it all? No. Story 121. I would only take it if you had the option of ending it when you want. I would choose the immortality that the vampires from True Blood had because they ultimately did not have to be around forever. Story 122. Would I have infinite memory storage in my brain? If not, would new memories overwrite older memories? The first scenario would eventually drive you insane, as you would remember everything, including all the bad things that have ever happened to you. In the second scenario, there would be no point in living forever because you would not remember everything. Story 123. I do not want to live forever, but I do not want to die. Thank you, Ozzy, and rest in peace. Your words will live forever. Story 124. Only with the caveat that I could end my life whenever I felt I was finished with it all. I genuinely would like to live a very long time, but I think eventually I would be done with it and want to leave. Story 125. I would live forever under several conditions. I get to absorb the life force of other immortals by decapitating them with a sword. I do not age physically and I receive my own new album from a Queen cover band. Story 126. Genuinely can't decide. This life sucks, but depending on what you believe, the afterlife could be even worse. Story 127. Can I also maintain a relatively youthful appearance, heal, and teleport? I would hate to be stuck in the body of an 80-year-old arthritic man trapped in a coffin at the bottom of the sea. Story 128. The outcome depends on the quality. If my body continues to age and deteriorate to the point where I look like a zombie or mummy before even reaching 200 years, no thanks. However, if my body remains relatively the same as it currently is, with changes in weight and strength based on diet and exercise, but otherwise stays at its current age, I will accept it. Story 129. If I had Wolverine-like healing and was immortal, I would take it. I am older and in great health that has not declined much. I enjoy learning and seeing what is coming next and do not want it to end. Meanwhile, a downside about the future is that there will be many horrible things I would have to live through. Also, real immortality would last billions of years, and that could become heinous depending on what the rest of humanity does. For instance, if technology is nearly unlimited, like in some science fiction, the world and the ability to explore the universe could be wonderful. However, if technology is limited, then life on Earth will one day stop, and I would have to be around to see it until the Earth is destroyed. What then? Story 130. Eventually, you would become an addict, but the world would run out of drugs and you would have delirium tremens that should kill you but would not. So you would jump into a volcano and burn yourself to ashes, living ashes. Story 131. Am I the only one who gets to be immortal? Before having children, I would probably say yes. Now, I do not want to watch everyone I love grow old and die and live without them forever. Story 132. I would not. I would rather be mortal because if I were immortal, it would drive me crazy and I would eventually get bored. Story 133. No, I am very comfortable knowing that my time in this world is limited. Living forever does not sound enjoyable at all. Story 134. Can I opt out of immortality later? If so, then absolutely yes. I enjoy being alive as I am, but if I could do extraordinary things without the risk of death, I would enjoy it much more. I want to see all of Earth's natural wonders, safely free climb mountains, without gear, observe natural disasters up close without fear, explore space, meet extraterrestrials, and participate in intergalactic conflicts. I just do not want to experience what happens when the last stars die out and I am trapped in a dark and lifeless void. Story 135. No. With immortality and infinity, time is meaningless. Eventually, everything that can happen will happen an infinite number of times. Every experience, good or bad, will become more dull than watching paint dry. Story 136. I think I would pass. Immortality sounds cool, but watching everyone you love age and die would be too painful. Life's value comes from its limits and moments. Story 137. Your replies say I stay in my healthy body and can eventually turn immortality off, so 100% yes. Super easy decision with no downside. Worst case, I stay my age for another 50 or however many years and then turn it off, therefore enjoying peak health for my entire natural lifespan. Story 138. No thanks to immortality. 73-year-old retired soldier here. I have already outlived most of my family, friends, and army buddies. I worked in a labor and delivery room in one of my early jobs, and those babies are grandparents now. I have watched enough people and things come to an end. While in no hurry, I will wait my turn to die without fear. Story 139. No, thank you. I would not take it. My belief is that one day this earth will disappear, and the idea of being here after everyone else in my life is gone is too much to think about. Our lives have more meaning when we know we have one chance to live it here on Earth. Story 140. No. The same fate my ancestors and my family will all meet is good enough for me. It is probably an important part of the experience. Story 141. No, death is the only thing that truly gives meaning to life because we know everything we love is temporary. Story 142. If I stayed the age I am now and remained healthy, I think I would take it. However, if my body declined and I got older, I would not take it. Story 143. Yes. Death is the single most terrifying experience humans face. Ceasing to exist does not sound like fun. I would like to avoid that. Story 144. If I can still modify it but not age, and if I can also choose to die at some point if I want to, then yes, absolutely. I would get to see this world evolve and continue enjoying all the good things it brings. Story 145. Assuming none of that evil genie's trick, then yes, I would, for as long as there are others to share existence with. The world is vast and meant for wandering, as they say. Story 146. No, I think I would suffer. I would eventually watch everyone I love die, and then I would see the death of the earth or the sun. I know humanity may think of a way to survive the death of the sun before it happens in about 5 billion years, but we are probably going to encounter many other issues along the way. Story 147. Even if billions of years pass, I still have a lot of time between that happening and now. If I had to wait for the next big event, I would be so bored of everything that it wouldn't bother me. I would get plenty of sleep until it happened. Even if the next event did not bring forth life, I would still be so used to boredom that I would wait for the next one. Story 148. No, not interested in being here long after family, friends, and my beloved pets are gone. This world gets worse every day. Story 149. Imagine watching everyone you know and love wither and die. Friends become fleeting, dust in the wind, gone in the blink of an eye. Eventually, entire civilizations rise and fall around you while you just persist. Slowly, even the world itself begins to die around you. Will the expanding sun finally kill you? Or will you have to desperately try to escape or burn for countless millennia until even it fades? Will you be floating in the endless void that is the heat death of the universe, utterly alone? Immortality, true immortality, is a nightmare. Story 150. Only if it works in an I die when I say I die kind of way. If I had no way of dying eventually, then absolutely not. I don't want to drift through the cold void of space for who knows how long unless I knew a new universe would be created eventually. Then I would have to think about it because that would be epic to see. Story 151. I just watched the first two Old Guard movies on Netflix, and they really affected me. I would only watch again if I knew in advance that it was for a set amount of time. Story 152. Only on the condition that I would not have to be sentient because sentience makes it possible to suffer, including suffering boredom. Story 153. No. I remember an old episode of Johnny Quest where a man wished for immortality and was granted it. He did not wish for eternal youth, so he was aging for centuries but unable to die. Story 154. I know the common Reddit answer to this question is, no, think of your loved ones and the future. But honestly, sure, why not? I'll accept the disorder along with the pleasure. Story 155. God no. I am having to work myself to death just to survive now, to the point that my social life is practically non-existent. Watching the few people I know die and spending all my time working hard to keep a roof over my head does not sound appealing, especially with the world in the state it is and likely will remain. Story 156. No. At least not unless I have a way to die at some point. Immortality might sound fun, but it comes with many problems. For one, you have to constantly avoid detection unless you want to end up on a lab table. Then, everyone you know keeps dying, which will eventually prevent you from forming meaningful relationships. Assuming you can manage all that, your life will become ultra boring. Since you need to keep a low profile, you cannot do anything that will make you too famous. On the other hand, having all the time in the world will likely lead you to procrastinate on things you might have otherwise done. Story 157. I would if there was a way that I had access to which would allow me to pull the ripcord myself at any time. Story 158. If I am always healthy and in my prime, with the option to end my life whenever I wish. Story 159. In a heartbeat. This life is all I know. I've kept myself in a panic almost every night of my life, to the point of it being unhealthy and essentially giving me insomnia. Thinking about what it would mean to fade into nothingness, to be as if you were never here, and to never experience anything again, that chills me to my core. I don't understand how other people manage to avoid daily existential dread. It's so prevalent in my life. Even if it meant seeing every person I love die, even if I were the last human standing, I would just feel lucky for having been able to experience so much life and history. I think it would be amazing. Story 160. No. Do you know how depressing it would be to watch every single person you get close to wither away and die? Are you sure you would not want it to end after 500 years? 1000. Story 161. The Earth and the Sun will not be around forever. You will be floating in space like the villains in Superman 2 eventually. Story 162. No, I have already experienced watching one of my children die. I do not think I could handle watching the rest of them or my husband leave this earth. You would be alone forever. Story 163. Life is meant to end for the individual. I would rather not disturb that. Glory is not without its cost. Story 164. I would take it. Then conduct the most dangerous experiments possible to stop aging and make my family immortal as well. After that, I would take a spaceship large enough to grow food and provide safety. I would leave the planet when it becomes too dangerous to live and explore the universe, both the known and unknown parts. Story 165. I do not know. First of all, it would be depressing watching everyone I know die. Second, I am poor, so I do not know how that is going to work out. Story 166. Absolutely not. I turned 35 this year, and I have had enough life experience to realize that I do not want to exist any more than I have to. Story 167. Never. I have struggled with my mental health and being alive for years already. Even if it did get better, I would not want to stay alive forever. Story 168. It depends. Can I stop it whenever I want? Is it never-ending youth? There are many factors I need to know. Story 169. Not unless my husband, our son, and any loved ones my son becomes connected to, such as partner, children, and grandchildren, also become immortal. Story 170. Yes. Where do I sign? I want to know if the human race ever gets beyond the seriously dumb stage. Story 171. Time is irreplaceable. Everything else is not. So, immortality would be hard to say no to with the caveat of eternal youth or an eternal stasis at a certain age. Story 172. I have chronic pain, so no. In fact, a significant part of my future plans includes assisted suicide once it becomes unbearable. In the sense of index funds over life insurance for my loved ones, I'm not suicidal. Now, assuming immortality where I am impervious and healed to peak human condition, I'd still want an option to end my life once it becomes unbearable. Whether it's the world ending or just a constant struggle to survive for everyone. Without that option, I would rather accept whatever comes or doesn't after this. I am also worried about the following: people finding out and experimenting on me. The first century of living again, in this day and age, how would I avoid detection? I get caught. Complete apathy toward life since I would literally have all the time in the world. Becoming further removed from humanity. Even if physical pain is impossible, the mental pain of loss or the absence of minor problems could make me desensitized. Falling behind. I trust generational wealth to some extent and would probably supplement it with a part-time job after living a century or so. But I would likely fall behind on technology and other developments like most older people. I'd better be impervious to mental decline with an almost endless capacity to absorb new information. I suspect I am a highly ungrateful person. I dislike life because of chronic pain, yet others suffer far worse, fighting for survival daily and experiencing significantly more happy moments. Imagine my utter lack of appreciation as an immortal. I just don't think it's for me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.